You didn't fall here by chance. And before your rational mind puts together the lazy explanation, algorithm, curiosity, boredom, I need you to stop and feel what has happened over the last 3 days. That quiet restlessness that appears when you're standing still with nothing to do, and it rises from your chest without asking permission. The thought that keeps coming back, even when you pretend it's not important, even when you switch tabs, even when you try to sleep. That strange feeling that something is approaching, a threshold you can't see, but that already weighs on your shoulders when you wake up. Maybe you woke up in the middle of the night this week for no reason. Maybe you stared at the ceiling and felt that your current life is starting to get tight, like an outfit that fit for years and suddenly no longer does. That's not insomnia. That's not stress. That's not a phase. It's the field preparing itself. And you arrived here exactly 5 minutes before you needed to. Between August 1st and 5th, the sky opens a specific window. And inside that window, 7 signs will appear for the people who can still read. Most will walk past them thinking it was coincidence, fatigue, a bad mood. A minority will recognize, adjust, and come out the other side with a version of life that previously seemed impossible. This video is the complete map of those 7 signs. You'll leave here knowing exactly what to observe, what to feel, and what to do with each one. Don't interrupt me in the next few minutes. Close the other tabs. The cost of missing this is greater than you imagine. From August 1st to 5th, there is a specific configuration in the sky that ancient traditions named 1,000 different ways. Portal, corridor, alignment, breath of the cosmos. You don't need to know the technical name. You need to understand the mechanism. During these 5 days, the relationship between human attention and the symbolic field becomes more permeable. This isn't mysticism, it's observation repeated over millennia. The Egyptians marked windows like this. The Maya marked them, the Taoists marked them. Not because they believed in angels, but because they noticed that there are periods when human consciousness enters resonance with something greater, and the decisions made during those periods carry disproportionate weight in the trajectory of a life. Now, there's a hard dichotomy I need you to understand before anything else. Humanity divides into 2 groups before this window. The first group is the sleeping crowd. These people will feel the energy of the next 5 days. They'll really feel it because the field doesn't ask permission. But they'll translate it as fatigue, bad mood, a strange day, a heavy week. They'll blame the weather, the traffic, their partner, their boss, Monday. They'll drink more coffee, they'll sleep later, they'll argue over nonsense, they'll scroll the feed until their body shuts down, and the window will close on top of them without their noticing that something was offered. The second group, the group you're in because otherwise you wouldn't be here, is the minority with internal infrastructure. These are the people who recognize that there's an alphabet behind the symptoms. That restlessness is a language. That fatigue in certain periods is the body returning the excess to make room for something new. You're not reading this because you got lucky. You're reading this because, at some point in the last few months, your consciousness began demanding an answer. Your routine didn't know how to give. And the sky between August 1st and 5th is the answer arriving at the frequency you're able to capture. Looking at the firmament on these days isn't romanticism. It's calibration. It's recalibrating your attention to capture what's already happening inside you, and that the speed of your normal day is making you miss. Now, a critical clarification. The universe does not speak in words. If you're expecting a voice, a sign written in the sky, a coincidence so loud that no one could deny it, you will miss every single one of the 7 signs of this window. Because the universe communicates by interruption, it communicates in the moment you stop. A phrase that appears 3 times in 3 different places on the same day. A person you hadn't thought of in years who shows up in 2 consecutive conversations with different people. A dream you wake up forgetting, but that leaves a specific taste in your mouth all day. A number that keeps chasing you on the clock, on a license plate, on a receipt. An emotion that rises out of nowhere when you're doing something mundane, folding laundry, driving, brushing your teeth, and that you suppress immediately because you have to keep producing. There it is, the silence of the universe. It's the opposite of drama. It's the opposite of the cinematic sign. And that's exactly why the crowd loses it. Because the crowd was trained to only recognize something as important if it comes with a soundtrack, with emotional explosion, with irrefutable logical evidence. And the symbolic field operates on the other side. It points with the pinky finger, not with a closed fist. Over the next 5 days, your job is not to look for the extraordinary. It's to turn down the volume of the ordinary just enough to hear the extraordinary that's already inside it. And here comes the point that separates the two groups once and for all. Signs are only useful to those who have the structure to respond. If you receive the sign and don't know what to do with it, the sign was noise. If you receive the sign and you have no inner place to put it, it evaporates and becomes an anecdote you tell at dinner. And that's why I prepared magic in 28 exercises, the 28 keys of awakening, for you. Not as an abstract spirituality course. As the exact structure, you need to turn each of the 7 signs of this window into real decision. It's 28 days, a full lunar cycle, in which you learn to recognize the signs of your soul, integrate the shadow that still sabotages you in decisive moments, and convert every intuition into practical direction. If you're one of those people who has felt for months that you're different, that you no longer fit what used to work before, that you carry a restlessness no one around you understands, this was built for you. The access is in the first pinned comment just below this video. And before I continue, do this. Comment, I am one of those who see if you've already understood that this window began inside you before it began in the sky. That comment is a declaration, and declarations change your resonance within the window. The first sign of this window is the most uncomfortable one, because it doesn't arrive as revelation. It arrives as fatigue, a specific kind of fatigue, one that doesn't pass with sleep, doesn't pass with vacation, doesn't pass with superficial therapy. It's the fatigue of continuing to be someone you no longer are, and that's where most people go wrong. They interpret this fatigue as personal failure. They think they're lazy, depressed, ungrateful. They start demanding more of themselves, taking more supplements, scheduling more commitments, because they were taught that the solution to discomfort is always to speed up. And the first sign is saying exactly the opposite. It's saying your soul has already left the building, and your body is still paying rent. You keep answering phone calls, keeping appointments, smiling at dinners, accepting invitations, but something inside you is no longer there. And until you recognize that, the fatigue will keep growing, because it's the only language your inner being has left to warn you that the route needs to change. Nature is a brutal mirror of this. A tree doesn't hold onto a dead leaf out of politeness. In autumn, it lets go. And it stays exposed, seemingly vulnerable for months until the new leaf is born. You were taught the opposite. You were taught to hold on to a relationship that's already over, a job that's already drained you, an identity that's already grown too small, an opinion that's no longer yours, a promise you made to a version of yourself that doesn't even exist anymore. And the first sign of this window is the wind arriving to say it's time to let go. Looking at the sky on days like this then has a concrete function. It reminds you of the scale. You're spending enormous emotional energy on minuscule things, an unanswered message, a cutting comment, an expectation that curdled into resentment, while up there there's a space so vast that your entire life would fit in a single point of light. This isn't meant to make you feel small, it's meant to make you feel free. Because when you understand the real scale of what you're facing, you stop giving life or death power to things that are only noise. The first sign, therefore, is the invitation to wake up from the hypnosis of the immediate, to look further than the next notification, to recognize that you have an inner direction, and it's been whispering for weeks, but you've been putting earphones on over it. The second sign arrives right after the first, and it has a very specific name: the sudden need to let go. You will look at piles of things, objects, files, conversations, contacts, relationships, recurring thoughts, and feel sick to your stomach. It isn't anger, it isn't contempt, it's saturation. Your field is literally pushing out what no longer belongs to you. And here's the trap. Your mind will try to make you hold on with logical arguments. This could be useful someday. That person has been my friend for 15 years. I've invested so much in this. I can't just throw it away. The logic you use to defend yourself from abandonment is the same logic that's keeping you trapped. Let it go. In this window, letting go isn't loss. It's space. And the field only delivers the new when there is physical and symbolic space for it to fit. The third sign is a mental clarity that appears out of nowhere, usually at strange hours. You're in the shower or driving or washing dishes, and suddenly a complete sentence forms in your head, so clear it sounds like someone spoke it. That sentence is a coordinate. Write it down. Don't judge it. Don't filter it. If you start analyzing, you kill the signal. Clarity appears in those moments because your rational mind is busy with a simple task, and that opens a direct channel to what lies beneath. Over the next 5 days, these moments will multiply. You will receive answers to questions you didn't even know you were asking. Have a place to write them down. Don't trust your memory, because memory filters out what's uncomfortable. The fourth sign is the strangest one because it's retroactive. You will look at paths that have been in front of you for months and realize they were invisible to you. An opportunity you dismissed, a person who showed up twice and you ignored, an idea you thought was silly and someone else executed. This isn't here to make you feel guilty. It's here to show you that your perception has changed. You weren't blind out of stupidity. You were blind because the old version of you couldn't see it. Now, you can. And now comes the real challenge. Every external leap begins within. You won't attract a new reality by being the same person who attracted the old one, and this is where most people get stuck in a loop. They feel the signs, understand the signs, and can't translate the signs into internal modification. They stay in the same emotional pattern, the same reaction, the same identity, and the field, no matter how many windows it opens, cannot enter into one who won't open the door. That's why Magia M28 Exercicios exists. Each of the 28 keys is an internal pattern modification, one per day anchored to the full lunar cycle. It isn't content, it's practice. Link in the first pinned comment. If you're feeling the signs and don't know what to do with them, this is the logical next step. Don't wait for the window to close to decide. The fifth sign is what most people call coincidence and dismiss on the spot. Synchronicity. You start bumping into patterns that shouldn't exist by chance. Repeated numbers, names that show up in random contexts, phrases you overhear on the street that answer exactly an internal question you asked that morning. A book falls off the shelf, and it's the exact chapter of the dilemma you're living through. This happens all the time, but you don't see it because your attention is trained to discard what statistics would call improbable but explainable. The universe doesn't need to violate probability to communicate with you. It uses probability in its favor. Each improbable event is a specific fold in the fabric of your perception, and between August 1 and 5, these folds are going to multiply. Your job is to register, not explain. The explanation comes later, and it will make sense all at once, in a retroactive flash. In the meantime, you write it down, you give thanks, you receive. And here comes the sixth sign, which is directly linked to the fifth. Repetitive thoughts that lose their anxious tone and take on the tone of instruction. Everyone has repetitive thoughts. Most of it is noise. The same worry, the same ruminating, the same mental dialogue with someone who isn't there. In this window, some of those thoughts are going to change texture. They'll get clearer, colder, more objective. Talk to that person. Go back to that project you abandoned. Write that message today. Stop waiting. They're short commands with no emotional drama. These commands are the sixth sign. If you treat them as anxiety, you suppress them. If you treat them as instruction, you act, and it's the action that closes the circuit. The universe isn't a distributor of passive miracles. It's a system that responds to aligned action. You receive the sign, you perform the minimal corresponding gesture, and the next sign appears. It's like a GPS. It doesn't show you the whole route at once because you wouldn't need it. It shows you the next turn. You take the turn, and the next one appears. If you stay still, the GPS repeats the same instruction until you act. And when the window closes on August 5th, all the instructions that were held back will be recalculated, which means you'll need to start the process from scratch in the next window, whether it's in October, in December, or only next year. The question is, are you really going to wait? Comment, "I am listening" if you've caught at least one of these signs in the past few days. The seventh sign is different from the other six. It doesn't come in the form of coincidence, exhaustion, clarity, or instruction. It comes in the form of courage, or rather, in the form of the sudden absence of the specific fear that had been paralyzing you. That thing that a year ago seemed impossible to do suddenly seems like just a matter of choice. That conversation you'd been putting off for months, suddenly you can imagine having it. That decision that required all your mental energy to avoid now doesn't even draw much attention anymore. It's as if the lock had been changed. You're still at the same door, but the key you had before no longer works, and a new key has appeared in your hand without you noticing how. This sign is the preparation for a greater awakening, and it isn't romantic. Awakening isn't becoming enlightened. Awakening is taking on the responsibility that was being outsourced. It's stopping the wait for the world, your parents, your partner, the algorithm, or even the universe to do what only you can do. A portal, understanding it now with clarity, is not an astronomical event. It's the turning point at which the cost of staying stuck in your current life becomes greater than the terror of taking the next step. You take the step, alone, in the dark, with no guarantee, and the ground appears afterward. Never before. The seventh sign is the internal perception that you're about to be able to take that step. And what do most people do in that moment? They retreat. They become afraid of their own expansion. They run back to the old pattern because it's familiar, even if it hurts. And the window closes, and they spend the next months trying to understand why life got stuck again. Raising your consciousness is not an emotional state. It's an operational decision. It's waking up tomorrow and doing differently one thing you used to do on autopilot. It's trusting your intuition just once and acting on it without asking 3 people for their opinion. It's preparing, truly, for the next cycle. And preparation requires structure. There is a reason why all ancient traditions, without exception, looked upward. It wasn't for lack of something to do. It was method. The Aztecs built entire cities aligned with stellar movements. The Egyptians adjusted monuments to specific stars. The indigenous peoples of the Amazon, the Andes, Africa, and Asia all developed cosmologies that placed the sky as a reference for decision-making, and they weren't wrong. They perceived something that modernity forgot. The cosmos is a mirror. Not a mystical mirror, a structural mirror. The order that exists up there, the rhythmic repetition, the predictability of cycles, the punctual return of celestial bodies, is the same order that exists within you when you stop sabotaging yourself. Looking at the sky in ancient traditions was a way of remembering your own internal rhythm. You have a cycle, you have an orbit, you have moments of approach and moments of retreat in relation to your purpose. And when you lose the external reference, the sky, the silence, the vast, you begin to measure yourself only by horizontal comparison with other people, and that comparison drives you mad. The stars were a symbol of wisdom because they didn't compete. Each one shone from its own internal energy, at its own distance, in its own burning time. There was no star envying another. There was no constellation wanting to be another constellation. And that is exactly what your soul is asking for right now. Stop comparing. Stop trying to live someone else's orbit. Return to your own rhythm, which is unique, irreplaceable, and aligned with the real version of you that hasn't premiered yet. The true mystery isn't only up there. It lies exactly at the intersection between the cosmos and your consciousness. When you look at a star, a part of you recognizes that that light left its place thousands of years ago and reaches you exactly now. It's not poetry, it's physics. In other words, you are literally receiving messages from the universe's deep past while you breathe. And if that is possible, how many other messages are you receiving right now that your attention doesn't know how to translate? The window from August 1st to 5th is that intersection becoming more visible. It's the sky descending into your chest. It's your consciousness rising enough to read what was always written. And here is the ultimatum of this transmission. You have 2 choices in the coming days. The first is to keep treating this as interesting content. You'll close the video, you'll internally agree, You'll return to your routine, and on August 6th, you'll realize the window passed and your life is exactly the same, with the same weight, the same boredom, the same restlessness that will now be harder to calm. The second choice is to recognize that you arrived here at a specific threshold, that the structure to cross this threshold exists, and that your responsibility now is to take the step. Magia em 28 exercícios. As 28 chaves do despertar is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Each of the 28 exercises was designed to transform the signs you just learned to recognize into concrete life decisions. It's not motivation, it's daily practice. If you want to leave this window with a new version of yourself and not with just another watched video in history, this is the moment. Before you close this and the day's normal distraction swallows you, before inertia wins again, click on the first pinned comment now and lock in your spot. What physics calls a quantum leap is the passage of an electron to a different orbit without passing through the space in between. It was here, and in the next instant, it is there. There is no visible transition. There is one state, and there is another state. And that is exactly what is being offered to you between August 1 and 5. You are not going to become another person gradually, with linear effort, negotiating with the old version piece by piece. At a certain moment, you are going to abandon the old version entirely, and the new version will appear, not as an achievement but as a recognition, as if it had always been there waiting for you to vacate the space. The only requirement for the leap is this. You have to let go of the old version without any guarantee of the new one. You cannot negotiate. You cannot make the leap halfway. You cannot keep one foot on each track. That is why most people do not leap. It is not because they do not feel the call. It is because they want a guarantee. They want to know who they will be afterward. They want the full script before taking the first step, and the field does not operate that way. The field delivers after the gesture, never before. In the next 5 days, you will have opportunities to practice this on a small scale. A decision you kept postponing, a conversation you kept running from, a project you never started, a truth you never spoke. Each of those is a mini quantum leap, and each mini leap you take reinforces the possibility of the big leap. You do not need to change everything at once. You need to change one thing today with conviction, without negotiating. Tomorrow, another. And on August 5th, when the window closes, you will already be another person. Not because the sky transformed you, but because you used the sky as a reference to transform yourself. The window is opportunity. The transformation is yours. No one will do it in your place. And this is where I need to tell you one last thing, because this is the beginning of a larger sequence, not the end. What you heard today was the preparation, the revelation of what this means for your new life, how each of these 7 signs behaves in the second week, what happens to the energy after day 5, and how not to lose momentum when the ordinary world tries to pull you back, is in the next video that appears on your screen right now. Click on it. The first 60 seconds will change your timeline. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, understand this. Every video here is a coordinate within a larger map, of the year, of the cycles, of the windows that are still to open. If you are not subscribed, you will receive loose pieces of the map. The next videos show what happens after this window. And missing the sequence is missing the context. The choice is yours, as it always was, as it always will be. The sky is already speaking, and it is speaking to you.